Good evening, everyone. It is now 6 o'clock. I would like to call the Rockdale County Board of Education work session to order. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Second, Jane Jones.
A motion to approve the agenda has been presented, and a motion has been made by Ms. Duncan, a second by Ms. Jones. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Oates? Please join me in celebrating the service and dedication of our current and former members of Rockdale County Board of Education.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Madam Chairwoman. I'm going to defer to our Chief Communications Officer and Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer, Cindy Ball, as she takes the podium. She'll give you further instruction.
Hey, if you two would like to join me up front, please. Good evening, Chairwoman Brown, Vice Chair Duncan, our board members, Superintendent Dr. Oates, our guests, and our honored former Board of Education members. We are glad you have joined us this evening for a special recognition. The Georgia School Boards Association and Governor Kemp have proclaimed this week, March 11th through the 15th, to be School Board Appreciation Week in Georgia. The governor's proclamation reads in part, Georgians serving on school boards have demonstrated a strong commitment to quality public education by securing necessary resources, promoting academic standards, and fostering partnerships within communities. Tonight, we celebrate the unwavering commitment and tireless dedication of those who are currently serving and those who have previously served on our Rockdale County Board of Education. Our board members are remarkable individuals who illuminate the path for countless students, teachers, and families. They navigate complex decisions, ensuring that our schools remain beacons of knowledge and growth. They champion innovative programs, foster inclusivity, and celebrate diversity. Their commitment to quality education brightens the futures of generations to come. Let us remember that light not only dispels darkness, but inspires hope. To our former board members, your service has been a guiding star for our educational community and for the men and women following your service as a member of the Rockdale County Board of Education. To our current board members, be the beacon that continues to shine brightly for our students, staff, and families. To each of you, we thank you for your service. May your light continue to lead us all. At this time, I will ask Dr. Oates and Chairwoman Brown to join me in bringing each of our former and current board members up front to receive a certificate of appreciation and an RCPS flashlight as a symbol of the bright light you emit on this community. We ask that you remain up front so that we can take a group photo, and then we'll have a short recess and allow our former board members to join us in the atrium for refreshments and a tour of the building while our current board members get to work. Okay. We will begin with former board member who served 1976 to 79 and was vice chair in 1978 and 79, Linda K. Pointer Williams. That would be great. Yep, right up front. Our next former board member, Donald E. Cannon, served 1980 to 88, was chair in 1982, 83, and 1988, and was GSBA president in 1988. Paul Reckamp, 1980 to 1988, and served as chair 1984 and 85. Ethel Boyle served 1983 to 1990, was vice chair in 1984 and 85, and was chair in 1986 and 87. I am going to recognize Mr. Otto Hertwig, who sends his regrets. He was ill and unable to come today, but I do want to recognize him because he may be watching us on our internet, on our live stream. But he served 1985 to 1992 and was vice chair in 1987 and chair in 91. So thank you for your service. We also have with us Ms. Darlene Hotchkiss, who served 1997 to 2012, was vice chair in 2003 and 4, and chair in 2005 and 6. We have Jean Yance Sprague, who served 2001 to 2012 and was vice chair 2009 to 2012. We have with us Mr. Jim McBrayer, who served 2011 to 2018, and then again in 2021 and 22, and was chair from 2015 to 2018. And we also have with us Mr. Tony Dowdy, who served 2013 to 2020. So this group represents our former board members. And so what we're going to do is take a quick picture, snapshot of just our former board members, and then we're going to bring our current board members down. Right, if you all will stay there, we will add our current board members and recognize them as well and take a photo with our current board members. So Dr. Oates, I'm going to bring you down one at a time. Dr. Oates, if you and Ms. Brown will hand out certificates to our current board members. Yes. And actually, we're going to begin with our current board chairwoman, Pamela J. Brown, serving 7 years, starting in January 2017. Our current vice chair, Heather Duncan, also 7 years, starting in January 2017. Ms. Mandy North, 11 years on the board, serving since 2013. Mrs. Sandra Jackson Lett, serving 5 years since January 2019. Mrs. Akita Palmer, serving 3 years, starting in January 2021. Miss Janie Jones, serving 1 year, joining us in 2023. And Mr. Justin Kinney, serving almost a year, joining us in April 2023. I will. Gone. Okay. Big smile. One for social media. Yeah.
At this time, we'll take a brief break for us to congratulate our board members. Thank you. It is now 6:18 p.m. and I would like to call the meeting back to order. We will now recognize visitors who would like to address the board. Mr. Michael Bernard, please come forward. This is the time when we allow citizens 3 minutes to address the board. Please feel free to submit any documentation to the board. We do not normally address your concerns tonight, but we ask the administration to address your concerns and provide you with an appropriate response. If your topic involves a personnel matter, or if you contend that your legal rights have been violated, we have specific grievance procedures for these matters. We respectfully ask that you refrain from making threats, personal attacks, slanderous remarks, or engaging in behavior that disrupts the decorum of the meeting. Welcome.
Can I go?
You can go.
All right. My name is Michael Bernard. I am 12 years old and I want to talk to you today about the Georgia Milestone Test. I am very concerned about this test. See, this is only my second year in public school and I have told my mom that I want to go back to private school because most of the kids are failing the Georgia Milestones across the state. They are even failing the gateway year. To all the parents, hear me clearly. There is nothing wrong with your child. There is a problem with this test. See, when I took it in the 6th grade, there was nothing on it that we learned in school, and the questions were written very strange. The test was even harder than the benchmark. I asked my teacher to look at what I got wrong, but she said teachers can't see the milestones. In private school, they let you see what you got wrong on the test and they help you get it right next time. At least in private school, they teach you how to pass their test. In public school, they don't. I believe this test is designed for failure. Why do you accept this? Do you know that most of the kids who fail come from black school systems? I know this because I gave my mom the scores from back to 2017. Last year, Clayton County did the worst. In online charter schools like Georgia Connections, they lock kids out of their accounts if they don't take this test. That is so wrong. No school should lock kids out because they refuse to take the Georgia milestones. I have taken way more tests in public school than I did in private school. That makes me think that tests in public school is not about achievement. It's about money, and that's not fair to us. I will never take this test again. In fact, I want all of you to take it first. Then you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard, for your comments. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's cabinet updates. Dr. Oates, please introduce your cabinet and provide us the update.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman, Madam Vice Chairwoman, distinguished board members, executive cabinet members, and senior cabinet members who are going to be presenting momentarily. First, as a point of personal privilege, I want to commend our student there for the courage to come up and speak his truth, and there's always plenty to dissect and look at, and so I appreciate your sharing that perspective. First up, well, let me just say, our Office of Teaching and Learning will be the stars for tonight in terms of most of the presentations. I do think technology has a few action items, but of course, this is the time of the year that they present on the instructional materials and resources that have previously been approved, and they give us more information so that we can be informed and accountable about the resources that you have authorized. So I'll defer to our distinguished Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Dr. Richardson.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman Brown, Madam Co-Chair Duncan, Dr. Oaks, and members of the board. I have to say, this time last year is actually when you all named me Director of Curriculum and Instruction, so I hope I've served you well this evening. So I want to go and get started with you. I can't go on without acknowledging the presence of my father, who's adding another layer of pressure as I stand here tonight. So again, I'm going to stand up tall tonight. Okay? There we go. All right. Throughout this year, you've actually heard from members of our team as we've shared our program structures, the things that we're doing to support teaching and learning, as well as mentioning you've celebrated with us the success of our teachers and our students. You also have the opportunity to hear directly from leaders. Within those leaders, they discuss their school improvement plans. When they discuss those school improvement plans, I'm hoping you remember that they mention the work that our curriculum and instruction team are doing to support their efforts. Within that time, they also mention specific resources, and I want to highlight some of those resources for you today before we get started. You got to remember to click. Specifically, those resources included Edgenuity, which is a blended learning credit recovery platform that we use across our secondary schools. Think Circa, that serves as a tool for writing across the curriculum for multiple grade levels, as well as Read 180, that serves as a resource for literacy. We come before you tonight to present some critical board actions that we believe are essential for the work of continuous improvement. Many of the actions that you'll see tonight are for renewal. For example, last year, Nancy, our math coordinator, came before you to adopt the math resource, and we purchased that item for 1 year. In addition to that, you'll see on the screen before you that there are items for ELA, social studies, and science. And I'll specifically draw your attention to the social studies and science action items. Those resources were purchased 6 years ago, and those subscriptions are expiring. We also have here a health resource. We've purchased the health resource on a yearly basis, but we found moving forward it's most cost effective to enter into a 6-year agreement with that specific item. You'll be presented with at least 2 new items, one of which is a K-5 literacy resource. If you remember earlier this year, Sharonda, Dr. McCrae, as well as the other parts of our literacy team shared the significance of the Georgia Early Literacy Act, House Bill 538. They also shared with you at that time that we're pending approval. We have approval of our new ELA. My data's adding too much pressure. They also shared with you at that time that we're also expecting a shift in our English language arts standards, which will be implemented in 2025. We've already started training specifically on those standards. So you'll be presented with a K-5 resource that honors, again, I want to mention Georgia Early Literacy Act, House Bill 538, which is a required resource for ELA. If you look behind me, I'm not just accompanied by my dad, I have the entire team. I thought it was important that as we come before you with these action items, that we show a collective effort. Because throughout the year, you've heard us talk
subscription would allow us to adjust for any changes in the curriculum at the state level, at the state standards. This would include those resources that are listed: investigating oceanography, grade 6 earth science, grade 8 science, biology, physical science for the high school Carnegie course in middle school. Next in science, this action item is in reference to the SAVIS science renewal. The superintendent will recommend that the Rockdale County Board of Education approve the renewal of the SAVIS science resources totaling $100,694.31. The purchase is contingent upon the approval of the contract by the superintendent and general counsel. And once again, this was a 6-year contract that has expired, and we are wanting to renew it and delay the 6-year, renew it as a 1-year so that we can accommodate any updates to the state standards. The financial impact for this SAVIS science renewal is $100,694.31, again, based on the SPLOST. You can see the list there of the titles that are involved in this renewal: Mastering Chemistry, Campbell Biology, which is for a magnet, Campbell Biology in Focus. The AP course that uses this particular text, this is the one exception on this SAVIS ask. This one would be a 6-year adoption, whereas the other items listed here would be for only the 1 year. We don't anticipate any changes in the curriculum for that AP course. Environmental science, earth systems, experience physics, conceptual physics, college physics, essentials of human anatomy and physiology, and organic chemistry. The next item for science is the HMH, or Houghton Mifflin Harcourt resource. The superintendent will recommend that the Rockdale County Board of Education approve the renewal of the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt science resources totaling $120,374.95. And again, this purchase is contingent upon the approval of the contract by the superintendent and general counsel. As with the other items, this was a 6-year renewal that we are asking for the 1 year pending any changes with the state curriculum and state standards. The financial impact, again, based on financing this through the eSplosh 6, would be $120,374.95. And you can see the list there of the individual titles. That would be for kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3 science. The next item that we're asking for, this is for our health program, the McGraw-Hill Health resource that we use there. The superintendent will recommend that the Rockdale County Board of Education approve the renewal of the McGraw-Hill Education's instructional resources for 6 years, totaling $258,641.31. This purchase, again, is contingent upon the approval of the contract by the superintendent and general counsel. And our rationale here is that with the Rockdale County Public Schools conducting the review by stakeholders of our resources for health education, the Health Learning Resources Adopted Steering Committee, which was comprised of teachers, parents, healthcare professionals, post-secondary health education experts, and others. The selection process did include committee evaluations, publisher presentations, and opportunities for stakeholder input. This process focused on the core health concepts such as alcohol and other drug education, nutrition, personal health, safety, mental health, and emotional health. After reviewing the samples and comparing instructional resources to the Health Education Georgia Standards of Excellence requirements, excuse me, the committee decided upon this particular resource. And the board adopted and approved it June 16th of 2022. So this would be a renewal. And again, the financial impact is $258,641.31 to be financed through the eSplosh 6. That would include teen health for grades 6 through 8 and the McGraw-Hill Glencoe Health for our 8 through 12 program. And you see the prices there for those. That concludes the science, health, and physical education requests.
Good evening. So as Dr. Richardson stated, last year we did adopt these resources that I'm going to present for the first time, knowing that we adopted new standards this year and we were in our first year of implementation. Last year, just to revisit, we did have a very robust adoption committee, which consisted of teachers, instructional coaches, administrators. At that time, they utilized what the Georgia DOE released as a quality assurance rubric to ensure that our resources really would be high quality. Since then, we've now collected, as of yesterday, an additional over 100 additional surveys, still aligned to those same said components on the instructional quality rubric. And we are glad to say that we are still showing very strong in alignment with those expectations. So I'm going to go ahead and present the action items to you. So the first action item is for elementary math, which is McGraw-Hill Reveal. The recommendation is that the superintendent will recommend the Rockdale County Board of Education approve the renewal of McGraw-Hill elementary math resources totaling $777,412.82. The purchase is contingent upon the approval of the contract by the superintendent and general counsel. And so the rationale here is that, as stated, the Mathematics Textbook Adoption Committee comprised of educators from each of the district schools, and they selected McGraw-Hill's Georgia Real Math as the elementary resource for the 2023-24 school year. After additional vetting, reviewing of stakeholder input, and comparing instructional resources to the new Georgia K-12 standards, it is recommended to move from that initial 1 year to now a 5-year subscription for McGraw-Hill Educational Georgia Reveal Math. The financial impact, again, $777,412.82 coming from EastBlock 6. Our next action item is for Sabbath Math, which is for 9-12. We also have Sabbath Math for 6-8 as well. So the recommendation is that the superintendent will recommend the Rockdale County Board of Education approve the renewal of Sabbath grades 9 through 12 math resources totaling $767,778.60. The purchase is contingent upon the approval of the contract by the superintendent and the general counsel. And so with this component, we have the resource is Sabbath Math envisioned for grades 9-11, and then Sabbath Math MyLab for grades 12, our 4th year courses. Financial impact will come from that EastBlock 6 as well. And my last one is for our Sabbath Math renewal, grades 6-8. The superintendent will recommend the Rockdale County Board of Education approve the renewal of Sabbath grades 6 through 8 resources totaling $488,633.25. The purchase is contingent upon the approval of the contract by the superintendent and general counsel. And so again, the rationale here is that the textbook committee, comprised of our educators from each of the schools, selected Sabbath Envision Math as the secondary resource for 2023-24. And after additional vetting and comparing to our instructional resources, we are now recommending to move from that 1 year to a 6-year subscription for Sabbath Math, again, coming from that EastBlock 6. And those are my 3 items.
I am extremely thankful that we had engaged community members and we were able to get that EastBlock passed, because I'm getting ready to share with you what's going to be needed to support the new ELA resources as well as the renewals. Okay. So what you see on the screen before you, okay, yes, she moved it, is our first resource. This is the renewal for our grades 6 through 8 and 9 through 12. So we're requesting that our superintendent will recommend that the Rockdale County Board of Education approve the renewal of Sabbath My Perspectives totaling $256,633. The purchase is contingent upon the approval of the contract by the superintendent and the general counsel. I want to share with you that the recommendation for this particular item is only for 1 year. We are not making the recommendation for a multi-year contract because, as Dr. Richardson has shared with you and I've spoken to you before, we are in the adoption phase of our new ELA standards. The new ELA standards will be released officially in the 25-26 school year. So for this resource for secondary, again, grades 6 through 8 and 9 through 12, just a one-year renewal until we have our new standards released. The financial impact will be absorbed by eSPLOS 6. The other item for renewal is Think Circa. Think Circa is our writing resource that we use, and the recommendation this year is to renew it for 1 year for grades 6 through 8. We are asking that the superintendent recommend to the Rockdale County Board of Education to approve the renewal of Think Circa, which is the writing licenses totaling $97,200. And again, this renewal is contingent upon the approval of the contract by our superintendent and our general counsel. You may be aware that Think Circa, again, is our writing resource, and we would like to continue to use this to designate support to our schools in reading and in writing across the disciplines through rigorous differentiated content and instruction for English language arts, social studies, science, and math. The next action item that you see before you is for Read 180, who's undergoing a name change. It was Read 180 System 44. It is now Read 180 Code. We are asking the superintendent to recommend to the Rockdale County Board to approve this purchase for the Read 180 Code Stage B student subscriptions and instructional resources from Houghton, Mifflin, and Harcourt, also known as HMH, totaling $80,206.60, and the purchase is contingent upon the approval of Dr. Oates and our general counsel. The rationale for this resource, if you are not aware, Read 180 Code is used to support intervention courses in our buildings. And so we're asking that these materials continue to be purchased so that we can remain consistent with our student subscriptions. We piloted this resource for the last 3 years, and we are excited to continue to hopefully be able to bring it back as we begin exploring those resources for grades 6 through 12 under the new guidance from the state. The financial impact, again, is $80,206.60, and it will be absorbed by eSPLOS. So those are the renewals for ELA, and you may note that the renewals really targeted grades 6 through 8 and 9 through 12. So now let's talk about what's new.
Dr. McRae, before
Yes.
you proceed, I don't know if you were going to segue to the world languages, but I had a question for the Savas My Perspectives renewal. If you could go back to that slide.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to be clear because the financial impact is $256,633. I saw a discrepancy on my sheet for it indicated $225,304. But I see that the screen is correct, so I'll assume that my sheet was an inadvertent error.
You may have gotten an earlier version of it.
Got it. That's what
We had to go back and make sure that all of the dollars and cents added up. And so,
Gotcha.
yes, you are correct. It's $256,633, and you'll note the breakdown for grades 6 through 8 and 9 through 12. Thank you so much, Dr. Oates. So I'm going to continue on with what's new. As Dr. Oates mentioned, world languages. I will talk to you about world languages after I share with you what our county has done, what our stakeholders have provided us with some feedback on as it relates to our new K-5 ELA resource. So similar to what you heard from my colleagues on how they rolled out stakeholder involvement and engagement, we also took that same approach, and we started our work at the beginning of the school year, essentially identifying what steps we wanted to take to roll out our adoption process. So we did engage stakeholders. You see the timeline before you. We had a committee that included our reading specialist. You may be familiar with Ms. McLaughlin and the team of ladies that she works with. So we enlisted their expertise as they have their reading endorsement background as well as their dyslexia endorsement training that they're currently participating in. And they have a special lens that assisted us with identifying our process for our K-5 adoption. So you see the timeline, and we are happy to share that as of March 1st, we closed the public review period, took all of the information from our stakeholders, and were able to begin moving forward with preparing the recommendation for you all today. The recommendation is rooted in using the high quality instructional materials rubric that's provided to us by the state. And what you see before you is really important. You may have heard some acronyms, but really we're talking about House Bill 538 and Senate Bill 48. And we know that that's driving a lot of the change that's going to impact our ELA, really all of our courses. But right now, in terms of the resources for elementary school as well as secondary, we're not selecting resources that are not in alignment with what the state has provided as high quality instructional materials. So we started our journey with using this instrument to identify the vendors that had strongly recommended. Okay, so I want to make sure that I share that with you. What you see in a little bit of a larger scale is the state did come back in February and provided us with additional vendors that were added to that list. And we had already started our process. Luckily for us, we were forward thinking and included our current vendor, which we use McGraw-Hill Reading Wonders. And so they had already been a part of our implementation. I'm sorry, not our implementation. Our K-5 Resource Adoption Committee is one of the potential vendors. They did end up making the list in February. And with that information and our teachers knowing what resource we were using, we pushed out to our stakeholders with the help of Cindy Ball and Michelle Kim. We made sure that our websites, district websites, as well as school websites, had the information for our stakeholders to engage. You may remember coming into this boardroom and seeing all of the displays in the back as well during the course of the last few months. So our stakeholders engaged, and as a result, we also did some engagement here in the building. So what you see are just a couple of pictures of our time together over the last few months, really digging deep into the resources, not just the committee, but also the leaders. And we were able to have our leaders participate in a review as well using the HQIM during one of their sessions. Here's the results. So I'll leave it for pause for just a second so you can see who those stakeholders were that we engaged. We had 68% of our responses came from our teachers. We had our reading specialists at 9%. Our parent engagement was about 11%. And then we have our instructional coaches, our district personnel, and administrators. What this equates to in a point system in terms of taking that data and really identifying who the front runner was, you can see in green, the front runner with 144 collected points in the system that we used is Benchmark Advanced, also known as B, B, and B. So the community, our stakeholders, have made the recommendation that the K-5 resource that aligns with the science of reading research that's been vetted by the state in terms of a vendor whose resource does meet the new legislation that we need to be making sure we are addressing is Benchmark Advance. Benchmark Advance does provide us with both digital and print resources. This particular vendor also will allow us to include all of our elementary resources. So let me make sure I explain this. Some of you may remember that we've used other products to support our K-5 instruction in terms of phonics and or writing. You may have listened that we didn't make an appeal for Think Circa to come back for grades 3 through 5. We did only for grades 6 through 8. This benchmark resource is going to allow us to do everything we need with one product. So we're really excited that not only did the teachers identify this as a resource that they would like to see us bring in our district, but it also allows us to streamline the resources that we're using. So for K-5, which will include their phonics and their writing, we've identified Benchmark Advance as the front runner. The recommendation is that the superintendent will recommend to the Rockdale County Board of Education to adopt and approve Benchmark Advance resources totaling $1,795,615.50. This purchase is contingent upon the approval of the contract by the superintendent and general counsel. The K-5 ELA Resource Adoption Committee, comprised of educators from each of the district schools, recommends Benchmark Advance as the elementary resource. After additional vetting, review of stakeholder input, and comparing instructional resources to our new state legislation, Senate Bill 538 and House Bill 48, and the new Georgia standards of the new Georgia English Language Arts Standards. That name is also changing. They're not going to be the Georgia Standards of Excellence. They're called the Georgia K-12 English Language Arts Standards. It is recommended that we purchase a 6-year subscription of Benchmark Advance. That costs financial impact, again, $1,795,615.50. You can see the breakdown on your screen for the K, 1 through 3, and 4th through 5th.
Excuse me, is that digital resource an online book?
That's a great question. So the digital resources include a variety. It's not just an online book. The students are actually provided a consumable. So each student will receive their own in-class workbook. The digital resource include interactive activities, lesson plans for the teachers. There are also some assessment components that are built into the digital platform. So it varies a little bit by grade in terms of how much technology is included in that grade band. But as far as the text that the students will be working with, each student will receive a consumable in hand as well as digital access. Any more questions on that one? Okay. So now I'm going to move into the other area that I support, which is world languages. Similar to the ELA adoption process, our small but mighty world language community engaged in the process as well of trying to identify a resource to support our French courses. We do offer French at all of our high schools up to French 3, and we are adding French 4 in 2 of our buildings after this school year, so we're excited. The resource that has been identified by our small but mighty committee is called En Culturas. And that's my Spanish accent. I do not speak French, but I'm giving it my best shot. So Entre Culturas is the resource that we have identified to support our French courses. Some of the features of this particular product, again, it will come with a class set of textbooks for each of the levels, level 1, 2, 3, and 4. It will also include digital resources for the students and the teachers, as well as continued professional learning. So we're really excited to be able to bring this resource. We actually use Wayside for our Spanish, AP Spanish classes, so we are familiar with this vendor. With that said, I'll share a little bit more about why we love it. It's very interactive. It allows the students to engage while in class and out of class, and it's a very real world experience for them. So what the feedback that we receive from our stakeholders is this is relevant. The images, the activities are indicative of what's actually happening in the world. So we really thought that it was a great resource. You can see the breakdown of what's included on this slide. Again, we will receive hardcover resources for our students as well as for our teachers, in addition to the digital. So the recommendation is that our superintendent, Dr. Oates, will recommend to the Rockdale County Board of Education to adopt and approve Entre Culturas resources totaling $82,651.74. And this purchase is contingent upon the approval of the contract by the superintendent and general counsel. The district's 6-year access to our previously adopted French resource is expiring in June of 2024, and they are no longer continuing to produce a French product. And so that is one of the reasons we definitely started looking elsewhere. As a result, our learning resources are needed for the upcoming school year to support our French courses levels 1 through 4. And after reviewing the identified resources and comparing them to the new Georgia Performance Standards for modern languages, the French Resource Committee recommends Entre Culturas, published by Wayside, into a 3-year subscription for this resource. Again, $82,651.74. And I say thank you to eSplost and thank you to you all. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Good evening, Chairwoman Brown, Vice Chair Duncan, Dr. Oates, board members. Tonight, I'm going to bring to you 3 action items. They're really exciting. I guess really for technology they are. But the first one will be district firewalls refresh. And so the superintendent will recommend that the Rockdale County Board of Education approve the purchase of FortiGate firewalls at a purchase cost not to exceed $385,283.76 from RFP Solicitation 2024-01 from Layer 3 Communication. This will completely upgrade the firewalls that we have now in our district office and provide state-of-the-art security. And this comes from eSPLOS 5 funding. The next action item will be our secondary wireless access point refresh to replace all our access points at all our middle schools and high schools. The superintendent will recommend that the Rockdale Board of Education approve the purchase of Aruba wireless access points at the purchase cost not to exceed $465,794.56 from RFP Solicitation Tech 2024-02 from Layer 3 Communications. And this will refresh all of our secondary schools. And this comes from eSPLOS 5 funding. And lastly, the last item will be the RCA auditorium refresh. The superintendent will recommend that the Rockdale Board of Education approve the solutions of Brieford, Georgia, under the Georgia State contract listed there as the vendor of choice for the purchase and installation of an integrated projection and sound system for the Rockdale Career Academy's auditorium for $66,647.74. This will be the removal of the old system and the replacement with a modern audiovisual experience there. And this comes from eSPLOS 5 funding. And this is these are all the actions items that I have. Any questions? All right, thank you.
All righty. Good evening, Madam Chair Brown, Vice Chair Duncan, board members. I'll be going over the preliminary financial report for the month of February. All right. The revenue in February was $11,158.5 million year to date, which is 79.2% of our budget. Last February, we received $10.1 million, $142.2 million year to date, which is 78.6% of our budget. The expenditures for February, $16.9 million. $139.5 million year to date, which is 68% of our budget. Last February, we expended $15.6 million, $123 million year to date, which is 66.7% of our budget. Our outstanding encumbrances at the end of February are $1,667,387. All right, our fund balance at the end of February is approximately 55.3. Last year, we were approximately 57.5. Our assets, approximately 59 million. Liabilities, 3.7 million, which are third-party payments, and our fund balance at 55.3 million. Thank you. I do have my finance director here tonight, Ms. Joycelyn Smith, in case you were wondering. So she's joining us tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, Keith, if you could hold the podium just a moment. As a point of personal privilege, and this is information that's available to our Board of Education, of course, and will be public very soon. But I want to take this opportunity to thank you, Keith, for your many years of service to Rockdale County Public Schools at the director level. And then, of course, you came just a few weeks before I came on as superintendent in your role as chief financial officer. And I think I can speak unanimously. I never speak for the board, but I think I can safely do it here, that you've done an exceptional job as chief financial officer. You've been an amazing financial advisor to me, and you really have distinguished yourself with your tenure as chief financial officer. At the end of this month, Keith will be retiring from Rockdale County Public Schools in his role as CFO. And I just want you to join me in applauding him and thanking him for his many years of service. Madam Chairwoman, if I might, the only thing I'd like to share is that, of course, I want to, I'll take another point of personal privilege to say that recognizing our former Board of Education members here this evening was in part, the chairwoman came to me and said, listen, we really need to look at doing this. I know that we're recognizing our current board, but we have so many former board members who are still active in their own way with respect to advocacy and in other ways. And so I want to thank you for that. And I think it went very well. I've gotten some preliminary feedback. They're very appreciative of that recognition. And certainly Cindy is out there showing them around. But I want to thank Cindy for all of the logistics, she and her department for pulling this off. And certainly I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our current Board of Education. Listen, I've heard it said that one of the most impactful and yet one of the most challenging forms of public services is at the local Board of Education level. You live in the community among the individuals. You know, there are other elected officials that by law don't have to live in the community in which they represent. I think of U.S. Congress, for example. You don't necessarily have to reside in the district within which you represent. That's not the case for the local Board of Education. And it is often a thankless job because much of the work of constituent service is not readily visible to the public. The phone calls and the expressed concerns are not as visible. But I want to thank our board. It is not something that should be taken lightly that on 8 occasions, the Board of Education for Rockdale County Public Schools has been recognized as an exemplary board, which is the highest recognition that GSBA confers on boards. And there's specific criteria for that. I want our public to understand that's not just something they wake up and say, oh, let me spin a, and see where it comes out. There's specific criteria that have to be met. And let me just say this, because this wouldn't be commonly known. Not all boards of education in the state get recognized as exemplary boards. It's the highest honor. And I think that's a point of pride. I know it is a point of pride for our board. Also, a new recognition was christened 5 years ago, and it is the Leading Edge Award, and our board has received that every year. 5 times this board has been deemed a Leading Edge Award recipient from GSBA, and that's because of innovation, different innovations. I won't name all of them, but we've been recognized for our career readiness innovation, and we've been recognized for so many others, our human resources innovations, digitization of records, and the like, as well as some of our pandemic innovations through vaccines and testing. And so I just commend our board because those things wouldn't have been possible ultimately were it not for the approval and ratification of the Board of Education. So I want to say collectively, because that's the essence of a board. It can only act collectively, and collectively this board is to be commended for its exemplary status and its leading edge recognition. So if you would, point of personal privilege, join me in applauding our current Board of Education. Thank you. Thanks for all you do. That's all I have, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Dr. Oates. The Cabinet has provided numerous presentations. Please take some time to look at that information and review it. Please review the February 2024 board minutes and provide any edits to Ingrid. We will vote on the minutes at the regular session. There is no old business and there is no new business. The Cabinet has provided an overview of action items. Okay, so action items 1 through 18 for the board to vote on next week. Is there a motion for the action items to be placed on a consent agenda? A motion to consider the action items under consent agenda has been made by Ms. North, second by Ms. Duncan. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. There is no board discussion. Do I hear a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel?
So moved, Justin.
Thank you. Palmer. All right, a motion has been made to go into executive session by Mr. Kenny and second by Ms. Palmer. All in favor? Motion carries. 7:03. We're going to the PL room.
Last page.
It is now 7:21, and I'll call the work session back to order. Do I hear a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation to appoint Dr. Tiana Holmes, currently assistant principal at Peaks Chapel Elementary School, to principal at Flat Shoals Elementary School effective July the 1st, 2024?
Second, Akita.
All right, a motion has been made by Ms. Jones and a second by Ms. Palmer for Mrs. Holmes to be appointed to principal at Flat Shoals Elementary School. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation to appoint Jocelyn Smith, currently Director of Business Services, to the position of Interim Chief Financial Officer effective April 1st, 2024?
Second.
A motion has been made by Ms. Duncan and it has been seconded by Sandra Jackson-Lett. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to conclude the meeting? We got another one? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, all right, thank you. Do I hear a motion to conclude the meeting? Thank you. A motion to conclude the meeting has been made by Ms. Duncan and second by Ms. Jones. All in favor? 7:22, the motion carries 7-0 to conclude the meeting.
Safe travels.